Hello, here I am again talking to you from South Africa, and I have my hot tea, and I do hope that you have a nice hot beverage because I would have a lot to share with you today. I've got a story to tell you, and I want to start the story with a testimony that I received from a mom from Namibia. I did ask her if she would mind if I shared this on our live streaming, and she said, of course. Because the reason why she said of course is because she would like other moms to be as set free as she was, because she had quite a troublesome beginning of the year, and then this testimony that I'm going to share with you is what she shared with me, and so I'm going to share it with you, and we hope, her and myself hope, that it'll help you in the way that it helped her. So that's the one thing I'm going to be doing today. And I'll share her testimony, the Namibian mom, and then I'm going to tell you a story after that. And so if you have joined me there today and you have questions that you would like to ask me, please just stay with me and put those questions in as you usually do with live streaming, and I will get to them. I'll have a look at them after I've told the story. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try and go there and see who's asking what questions, but I will answer them after I've told my story. So I hope that you are going to stay with me, and I thank you for joining me, and I hope you're going to stay for the end of the story, and I also hope that I'll be able to answer some of your questions if you may have questions out there. So to begin with, what I also love to do with these live streams is I like to give a tip of some kind, whether it's a practical tip or a home education daily tip or whatever. And today's tip is this, and that's inspire and don't require. That's the tip I have for you today, is to encourage you to inspire your children. Don't require of them to do this and that, but just keep inspiring them. You be their cheerleader. Last week's live streaming, I was sharing about being our children's cheerleaders, because somebody was asking me, how did I manage when I had chronic illness to continue to home educate? And I shared then that the way I managed was just by being the cheerleader of my children as they were continuing with their learning and daily living. I was there to cheer them on because I wasn't able to do much else but cheer them on. So that's what I had. So that's what I did. And so today I want to encourage you to inspire your children, to be an inspiration to them, and not to require of them so much. Because the topic of today is all about this concern that parents have about exiting from home education, and are they preparing their children, and will they get the right, for adult life that is, and will they get the right qualifications, and what about their certification? And that question, that concern that parents have, is the very thing that I want to focus on today, because it is a great concern for parents. And so here comes the testimony from this mom in Namibia. Just to introduce you to that testimony, I just want to share something with you, and that is she wrote to Oikos this week, this mom, because she noticed something that could be a possible suggestion to Oikos for us to improve on and to do better with. And she wrote it, and she said, if this is the experience I'm having and I've seen something that can be better, I thought it's best to let you know that. So I really, really appreciate that, and we would really encourage those comments from people. If you are discovering something on the site, or if you have an experience on other websites where you feel it isn't been offered on Oikos website and you would really like that, then you must let us know. Like one mom said, if only you had a place where we could, I think, what's it called, a wish list, where you can select things for another time, because your budget, you can only get this at the moment, but you spotted things that you would like to have later on, and you don't want to forget about them, and so you put them in your little favorites list or whatever it is. So we spoke to Bruce, our son-in-law, and asked him if that was possible, and he said yes it is, and so then we did that. So this mom was talking to me about one of these ideas, and she said, we are on this journey together in a sense, and we hope, I'm going to start again, we are on this journey together in a sense, and we support what you do 100%. So that was encouraging. And then she said, so we see it as our responsibility to help where we can. So I was just really grateful for that. And that's what I wanted to encourage anybody who's joining me there and listening to this or watching this live stream now, after the fact maybe,
If you have ideas, please don't be shy. Please just send them along. We can either apply them if we can, and if we can't, we will remember that it is something that has been requested and do our best. And so now here is what this mom from Namibia also wrote after we had been discussing this other matter. She said, and this is exactly, I've lifted it from the email and asked her if I could share it. And so these are her words. It says, earlier this year, I had sleepless nights about the whole certification issue. I spent lots of time researching, reading, and watching your video series on the topic. Finally, in my quiet time, God gave me this scripture, and maybe it can be a help and a blessing to someone else, hence me sharing it with you and live streaming. And then she said, it set me free once and for all. And this is the scripture she got. It's from John 6, verses 27 and 29. Stop toiling and doing and producing for the food that perishes and decomposes in the using, but strive and work and produce rather for the lasting food, which endures continually unto life eternal. The Son of Man will furnish you that. For God the Father has authorized and certified him and put his seal of endorsement upon him. This is the work, the service that God asks of you, that you believe in the one whom he has sent. That scripture, John 6, verses 27 to 29, is the one that this mom received, and this is the scripture that set her free from toiling and worrying and being concerned and researching and reading and worrying again and worrying some more about her children. She has sons, and she was concerning herself like any responsible parent does, is just really questioning and researching and making sure that she's giving them the best that she knows is available to her to give, so that when they exit from home education, they're prepared for adult life. And God gave her this scripture and told her to stop toiling for things that and striving after things that she does not need to, but rather to focus on the fact that the Son of Man will give and furnish you that. For God the Father has authorized and certified him being the Son of Man, and put his seal of endorsement upon him. This is the work, the service that God asks of you, that you believe in the one whom he has sent. So from that testimony, I wanted to continue in sharing with you a little story of our own personal testimony in that regard. So before I jump into that, I just wanted to say that I've queued up some photographs to share with you, just from our personal family album. And I just would like to take you through the journey and share with you how it worked out in our family, and to encourage you in this story. I hope that in some parts of it you're going to find some support and some help. So let's start with the first photo. If you can bring the first photo up there. I have asked Jamie's permission to talk about his testimony. And there you will see that little chap there in that picture is actually Jamie. That's our son, who's now in his mid-20s. And the lady holding a little parcel in her hand is actually Granny, and she is holding a little flying suit that she made for Jamie when he was a little guy. And standing behind him in the purple and blue suit is my brother Stephen. And there's myself and our daughter Missy. Now, I'm sharing this photograph with you to say to you, to show you and tell you that our family come from a family of aviators. And Jamie obviously been surrounded with aviation. Show them the next picture, please, Jamie. There he is now going in his uncle's aeroplane for a flip. Very exciting for a little boy, and his granny's made him a little suit. So, of course, there's lots and lots of input in his life, and he's surrounded with aviation. So then what happened? He wanted to become a pilot. Now, as his mother, that is the very last thing I would have chosen for him, because we've had some tragedy in our life regarding aviation. So wasn't very enamored about the fact that my son was wanting to become a pilot. However, if that was his passion, and he was very, very engaged in it, to the point of, go to the next pic for me. You'll see now, there he is, very, very thrilled with the fact that he's going to go flying in this little tiny aircraft that I had to pray all the way through while he was flying, that God would protect him, keep him safe, and bring him back down to ground safely. Another one is him going in a helicopter. So there his granny has even made him a little flying suit. And it's got all the right little badges. And it's, as you can see, this is just something now that is going to excite and inspire him. So it becomes part of his life, aviation, which naturally leads to an interest in aviation, which naturally leads to a desire to become a pilot. Even further, here you will see that he starts building model aeroplanes, as my eldest brother Gregory was a keen model aeroplane builder. So now here's this little guy building model aeroplanes. Show the completed one picture, and there's the result of his handiwork. And then another one when he did some balsa wood planes. And then I'm just going to, you can leave that photograph because I want to show them these books now, Jamie. Can you go back to, I want to show the moms that are watching. And then now you must remember his uncle now is, my eldest brother is a pilot, and he is running a pilot school, training school for training pilots, right? Because he's got his own aeroplanes and what have you. So he happens to have these books, you see. Flight Briefing for Pilots, Volume 1, an introduction manual of flying training, complete with air instruction. So my brother, Gregory, the eldest, gives these books to Jamie, who's something about 12 at the time, all right? And he starts reading these books. I'm telling you this story, it's all going to lead somewhere, to show you that he starts reading the fundamentals of flight, and he sees these pictures of wings and aeroplanes, and he has been building aeroplanes, as you saw in the previous photograph. So he knows all about this wing and the dynamics of the air and all the technology around it and science around it. And furthermore, we'd been doing KONOS, and we had done trust, and there was a whole section on flight there. So here's this little guy reading the books that are being used for the training of pilots, as in now they've completed school, they've decided they've exited, they've got their certificates or whatever, and now they want to go and be a pilot. Those people that my brother's training are now adults, all right? And here his little nephew his nephew must have been, anyway, I'm trying to get the timeline of all the ages at the moment, but the time that it happened. But I know that Jamie must have been, I said 12, but I think he was actually younger, probably 10 or so. And he started reading this book. And it didn't take him long to tell me that, but we did this in KONOS, Mom, and I learned that when I built my model aeroplane. Okay, so then he finishes that book and he goes on to this one, an advanced manual of flying training, complete with air instruction, flight briefing for pilots. Number 2. And number 3, radio aids and air navigation. We had touched on this also when we were doing KONOS, obviously at a very elementary level, and this is now more advanced and technical. And then the 4th one is associated ground subjects. So these aviation books, instruction manuals on training to become a pilot, he just read because he was interested in aviation. So now he hasn't actually finished his home education. He hasn't got his school leaving certificate of any kind, but he's already read the books that the students that are in flight school, training to be pilots, they've been read. But obviously there was a whole lot in here that was beyond his maturity level. He's not going to be able to understand the deeper technical aspects of what he was reading in here. But he read it anyway because he was interested. And because he read them, he knew about them. And if later on he wanted to pick that up and refresh himself or study deeper or have greater understanding, then he would have just done that. But I'm telling you this whole story because of the fact that Jamie, as you might know or not know, is our film editor here, our videographer, cinematographer. There's lots of different labels you can give it, or names or definitions. And so he went actually from this tremendous interest in aviation because he was surrounded with it. He went from that into being curious about photography. Now,
stay with me, because you've heard now he was doing he was interested in aviation, and then he went into photography. Can you show them that photograph on when you were doing your photography, or is that jumping ahead? Oh, yeah, there. Thanks, Jamie. There's Jamie then started showing a very keen interest in photography. You'll see he's a lot older now, not just the little chap that was very keen on being a pilot. And let me tell you, when he was keen on being a pilot, it wasn't just his uncles that he was surrounded with that was taking him for flights in the aeroplanes and giving them flight training manuals. But we were also, because of Oikos Ministries, involved in supporting and helping people that were involved in mission aviation, for an example. And that was one of the missionaries we were involved in. And so it wasn't unusual for us to be seeing how we could support and help families that were in remote areas and they were having supplies sent to them. I've got a couple of photographs of that to show you little children sitting on the runway getting ready to be loaded into the aircraft. There's another one as well, isn't there? There's all the goods to go into the aircraft. There's another one there with a little finding some shade underneath the tree on the hot runway. So there again, you're seeing we are surrounded by things relating to aviation. And now Jamie's hearing about people that are actually involved, that is their life. And so this man with his wife and their children are flying off somewhere to Mozambique or wherever it might be. And so, of course, this interests Jamie even further, because now he's really interested in aviation. And now he's been exposed to it in a different way, as in not just enjoying going for joyrides with his uncles in their aeroplanes, but also the fact that there's been a pilot and training to be a pilot could be that he can go to be involved in missionary work, such as sending supplies to remote areas. So then what developed from that, I didn't grab those off the bookshelf, unfortunately, but what developed from that is he started reading books, novels, on a series, actually, of people that built turned an aircraft into, it was a big passenger aircraft, pulled all the seats out and turned it into a goods aircraft, cargo type aircraft, which they then used that to fly goods into areas. And so that sparked another interest in Jamie, and the fact that he then was thinking about that the Red Cross and disaster areas and human, what are those, natural disasters, that's what I'm looking for. He was then interested in being able to be helpful and supportive for in that way for natural disasters. However, where this all ended up is not actually Jamie being a pilot. He has not got his pilot's license. He didn't follow in his uncle's footsteps, who got his private pilot's license when he was about 16, I think. My brother got his private pilot's license when he was younger, before he was finished with school or anything. And then he got his commercial license. And then he had his own aircraft company, and he used to charter people around, and that's, as you've heard, where all the interest has come from in aviation. All right. Now, the thing is that we could have been getting, as parents, been getting concerned about how's he going to be equipped and prepared for getting his pilot's license, and maybe he needs to get his matric so he can get his pilot's license. Well, my experience had been that my brother was 16 when I was younger, and he had got his PPL, private pilot's license, before he was even out of school. So I knew that our son didn't need to actually finish school to be able to follow this course of interest that he was showing an enormous amount of fascination towards, as you've seen by the pictures. And this just stayed. I mean, from a little boy all the way up until that photograph you saw of him starting to get interested in photography. He was going to be a pilot, and that was that. So one would think as a parent, you need to make sure his maths and science is really, he's doing well with that, and see to it that he's getting that good foundation. But actually what has resulted in all of this is to tell you that he didn't exit into adult life and go towards training to be a pilot.
he's ended up in the film industry, and he's ended up fully training himself in the film industry by doing courses, online courses, and film school and all of that just online. He didn't actually get any kind of certification or qualification to equip him and enable him to do the training and the education and the equipping for being involved in film and the film industry. Just show me the next photo that I had there. I'm just going to see. I don't know where the photos are. What is the next photo that was coming up? Oh, let me just see. Oh, yes, there's that one, Jimmy. Put that one up of you flying, doing your model aeroplane flying. I just wanted to show you this now, to show you that even though he had started showing an interest in other areas, such as photography, here he is still involved in being interested in flight. Is there another one? A second photo of that. There's another one. And here he is, busy flying his model aeroplane and learning all that there is about flight and aviation. And at the same time, I'm going to come back to talking about the fact that we did Konos, and he learned a whole lot about flight and we were doing trust, actually, that was the character trait that we were busy with. And while we were busy doing that, Jamie was continuing to have the interest in this whole aviation topic. But then in between that comes this interest in photography. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted here now because I'm trying to see if I've missed any photographs. I think let's show them that little photograph of you doing playing golf, actually. Not playing golf, that it's when we're jumping back now, there's Jamie is just a tiny little guy, and he was interested in golf. Why? Because his dad went and played golf. So his dad took him along to play golf with him. And so now he could become a professional golfer. But that's so. The point I'm making is that Jamie could have become a pilot, but then he could have also become a professional golfer. And now, how do I have to equip him as a parent? And then perhaps he could have gotten more seriously into just photography, as in being a photographer, still photographer, and being a professional photographer. But then he started showing an interest in film and video, and at that time, Oikos was developing with technology, and so it was really wonderful that Jamie was showing an interest in that, because now he was filming the building of the Oikos Publishing, the printing house that we've built to be able to expand and develop, and so he filmed all of that, and that is actually, I think he did a vlog series at a stage, and all of this was just self-trained, and all of this was before we as parents had to concern ourselves with whether he was going to get his matric or not. But you know what? At the end of all of this story, these little bits of photographs that I'm showing you to show you the sort of progression of a child having such a huge interest in a particular topic, as in aviation was really the thing. I mean, it was a surprise to us that his interest went in a different direction, because all he ever spoke about was going to be a pilot. And then the mission aviation thing got him interested to being a missionary pilot. And so for a couple of years, that's what was the interest. That's what he was going to do. There was never any talk of anything else. And then you've heard now, as I've told the story, of the other things that came along, and golf in between. And because the golf, that photograph of him as a little guy playing golf, it actually continued. He continued playing golf all the way through to adult life, because it was an interest, it was a hobby, a sport, and that is what fascinated him, and he was good at it. And so it could have been that he became very committed to being a professional golfer. In fact, one of his friends at the time, when he was a little guy, his brother was training to be a professional golfer, so there was a lot of interest there too. All right, now the point being is he is now full-time in Oikos Ministries, and he is doing all the videos. The many hundreds of videos that you see on the Oikos website have all been done by one person only. You would have seen my face because I've been presenting them all, but he's the guy that does all the technical, and he gets the footage, and he does the editing, and the opening page and closing page and the graphics that are involved with that and everything else, together with his sister's help, because she's the graphic person. And then, now that's another story. Today's live streaming was to say to you and to encourage you with, at the end of the day, what has mattered is that we have been his cheerleader, and we haven't put the emphasis on aviation being the thing that we now need to equip him for. We've given him what was needed when the interest was there, such as tremendous interest in flight and everything to do with it. So he read the flight training manuals, right? And he built model aeroplanes, and he went in helicopters and light aircraft and large aircraft, and also the other thing that he was aware of at the time wasn't just his interest, but if his mother's brothers were all in aviation, then he actually saw it being an entire family thing. So it was really a natural progression for him to just continue on into being a pilot. Jamie, show them the photograph of me going for a flight with Stephen. Now that's my one of my brothers. There I am in his, I think, what is he doing? Strapping me in or doing something to get ready for flight. And he actually runs his own company. There's another photograph there of, just having a look. Oh, there we go. That's the next one. Thank you. That is his light aircraft, and my brother Stephen runs a company called AirServe, whereby he is a aerial photographer. So he has connected photography and flying, two passions. And isn't that interesting now? You probably gathered that Jamie is now exposed to an uncle that is very involved in photography and in aviation. So now you can see from that that's possibly where the interest for photography came from. But let me tell you that nobody that I know in our family or friends or connections or anything has ever had anything to do with the film industry. That was like a completely new one to us. And so Jamie had to just train himself. He didn't have someone to go to. He didn't have us, his parents or his uncle or family members or people that were coming across our path like Mission Aviation and so on. There was no reference. There was nobody to go to regarding training and equipping himself in videography. But there's this thing now called Google. And so he started doing courses, audio courses, and then video courses and whatever from various different film schools that he could do while his interest started going in that direction. And all of this, at the end of the day, exiting into adult life and now following after the thing that he's passionate about and he's following after and he's doing for a purpose that is for Oikos at this stage of his life. He's doing all these videos for this ministry, and he's in his mid-20s. And so what is the most important thing for us as the parents to have prepared him for? To me, it wasn't making sure he could get his pilot's license or preparing him to be a professional golfer or preparing him to do well in videography. To me, the thing that has always been important is to equip him in character. So whatever he's facing, he can be prepared and ready for that. If he has to now go and write some exams, or if he has to now join Mission Aviation because that comes after years later, suddenly that comes up again. And now it would be a good idea for him to have his pilot's license. Well, then he can get his pilot's license because he will be following after God if that's where God calls him to. So the way I see it is there's no limit when God is involved. Like the mom from Namibia shared, God gave her that scripture which told her from John 6 verses 27 and 29 that it inspired her and encouraged her to be set free from her worries about preparing them for that final exam at the end of their when they're at that age, when her sons are at that age and they need to be equipped and prepared. Because I hope the little story and the little slideshow of our family photos has shown you some
insight as into a journey of how you don't necessarily need to, as a parent, be jumping at whatever your child's interest is at the time, as I have shared, with it being flight or whatever it might be. Because I'm going to come back to this again. All the time that all of this was happening, we were doing Konos living. And while we were doing Konos living, we were focusing on training character. And I really have seen that as a parent, and today, right now today, the thing that I need to continue being the cheerleader for and encouraging our son in is character, and helping him to persevere when he needs to, and have patience when he needs to, and be kind when he needs to, and all those characteristics that are pleasing to God. That's what I must spend time with him, not actually helping him to get ready for the tutorial that he's doing, that he has to do this project on audio, on the course that he's doing in a film school, because I wouldn't even know how to begin to help him with that. And so, but what I do have to help him with, I feel as a parent, is to encourage him to excel and to give his best and to apply himself. And ultimately, to be pleasing God. Ultimately, for him to be knowing that God's way is better than our way. There's no question about it, that to follow after God's way. And it could take him in any which direction. And if he needs to get some kind of qualification, to prepare himself to get that qualification, to be able to take the next step that is God's step, God's way, well, then he must prepare himself for that. And I must be there to support him and encourage him in that. So just like we supported encouraging him when he was interested in flight, right, here's a manual, read that and build the aeroplane. And you want to go play golf with your father, go play golf with your father. I mean, I just hope this is making sense, that all of the time, each step of the way, the focus hasn't been to be making sure he's equipped and ready for an exam so that he can take the step that is required by what man is saying, or what the world is saying, or what the systems require. Because the reason why I wanted to spend time on this today is to just really encourage you to say that the thing that came to me as a reference to for us to see how seriously we need to not be caught up with the demands of how things are in the systems of the world is the example that came to me was the music industry, and how very different the music industry looks now in 2018 to what it looked 10 years from before, 2008. It's just so completely different. And so that reference of, you could have been, if you're preparing your children now when they're 10 for something that looks like it's going to be in 8 years' time, when they're 18, it might be that you spend a lot of time preparing them in a way and for something that's never going to look like that, like it looks to you now. So I hope that's making sense. I just want to help you to take today and seize today and do today. Inspire your children. Don't require of them to prepare for something that may never be. And be their cheerleader. Encourage them in what is surrounding them at this time. Because all those years of Jamie's interest in flight, we could say, well, where did that go? Because he's not a pilot. He hasn't gone and joined mission aviation. So what was all that? Well, building relationship with his family, with brothers of mine that are no longer with us. The brother that I referred to who gave these books, he isn't with us anymore. He actually lost him in a tragedy that was to do with aviation. So that's now another whole story. But I'm just saying you could question why all the time and effort and energy focused on that when he's now a videographer. Well, the way I see it is when he was building those models, he was learning to follow instructions. When he was learning to focus on detail, the detail that he was focusing on in that and preparing and building that model is now supporting him in the industry he's in film, because detail is terribly important and getting it precise is terribly important. And he'd spent many hours practicing that by building models. Now, I wouldn't have known then, when he was a little boy, that that was actually equipping him in the field that he's in now. So I'm saying to the parents, you don't know now when your children are little, what you're preparing them for, what industry you're preparing them for. So why spend a lot of time preparing them with a whole lot of knowledge for something that isn't actually going to equip them for what they need 10 years from now, even though you think it is, because that's what the world is telling you it needs to be. Oh, Jamie, I just need you to send me the link. Oh, no, never mind. I've got it. I've got the link. I'm now, after telling you my story, I'm now going to go onto Facebook, onto this live streaming thing, and I can say hello to the people that have joined. And there is Shirley. Shirley, thank you. Once again, thank you, Shirley. It's so lovely to have Shirley there on these live streamings that we do. I really appreciate you being there. Shirley is in England, and I'm happy to see there are some people there joining us. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to read Shirley's comment. It's so easy to feel pressure to attain certification by a certain age or certification at all. Quite right. Like the lady in Namibia, I too went through this. God spoke to me in Jeremiah 2 verse 13 and Jeremiah 2 verse 18. And Jeremiah 2 verse 13 says, my people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. We must not dig our own broken cisterns. Secondly, Jeremiah 2:18 says, now why go to Egypt to drink water from Shahor, and why go to Assyria to drink water from the river? God brought his people out of Egypt, out of the world's normal. We don't need, therefore, to drink from Egypt, from the Egyptian rivers. Thank you, Shirley. That is very, very helpful. I'm just really thrilled you put those scriptures in there, because I'm hoping that those that couldn't join us here on live streaming, because we put this live streaming onto the homepage, I hope that people will see after the fact that what God is saying to us about preparing our children for him, that's what's important. And there's some other moms there. Hello, other moms. Deborah. Oh, Deborah from Mozambique is there now too. You see, isn't this amazing that I can sit here in South Africa, and there's Shirley in England, and there's Deborah in Mozambique. You see, I really did not know when Jamie started showing an interest in film industry, and that's actually what he's trained himself in. I had no way of knowing that one day I'd be sitting here at our home talking real-time live to people in different parts of the world. And I'm just very grateful that he is led, that God is using him in this way, because I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. And so he's been equipped to be able to do this work, even though his entire childhood he was going to be a pilot. That's the point that's why I've showed you photos of flight, and to just show you the progression of where all the focus was. But now look, here we can sit and I can talk to Deborah there in Mozambique. I wonder if Deborah's there right now. She was there for a bit and now she's gone. Rika and Princess. I wonder where Princess is. You know, it would be so nice if you ladies who have joined me there, if you just tell me where you are. I happen to know Deborah's in Mozambique. Well, she might be in South Africa now, for all I know. But I think she's in Mozambique at the moment. And the other moms that are there, it would be fun if you could tell me where you were, because I just think it's exciting. And also, if you've got any questions, you can ask me these questions now, because that's what this is about. Our live streaming is be able to have questions and answer time as well while we have some tea, which I'm going to have some now. And have you noticed my little candle? Candles are very meaningful to me, and I love to have them nearby. This one isn't a scented one, unfortunately, but I would like to have a candle on every, put the candle over here, on every live streaming, actually. I've got so many stories I can tell you about the candles.
And there's Deline from Pound Town. There we go. Actually, you know, Deline, I thought you were in Westville for some reason, but Deline is in Pound Town, and Deline came here to where I'm sitting right now, and we had a little chat, and she shared with me her testimony about smiling at her children. Just love that testimony. If you want to go and watch that testimony, Jamie, are you going to put Jamie's busy putting in the link to Deline's testimony. I really share it a lot. Deline, I often tell people about that, and I'm just so glad that we were able to capture that. Thanks again to Jamie being available to be able to do all these wonderful videography things. Princess is in Witbank, South Africa, in Mpumalanga. And I am in KZN Midlands in Natal, South Africa. And there's Stephanie from Idaho in America. Hello, Stephanie. And Rika's in George. I wonder if I met Rika. Is it Rika or Rika? I'm sure it must be Rika. I wonder if I met you, Rika, when we were in George last November. I think it was November we were there. I'm wondering if you were there at that meeting. Jamie has put this link there for Deline's testimony. You moms that have joined me there today, I hope you can go and watch Deline's testimony sometime. And there's Joanne Amy from Pound Town. Hello, Joe. Greg bought that little packet to me, by the way, Joe. You see how wonderful this is. Now I can just talk to Joe. Greg saw Joe's husband last week when he went down to get the shipment from the docks, the shipment of all the books that came across the ocean from America to us. Now they're all on the shelves and we can get them out to the people. And Greg saw Joanne's husband when he was down there. And there's Joanne now on the live streaming. Okay, ladies, thank you for introducing yourself and telling me where you are. But how about asking some questions now? Question time. And Rika said, yes, we did meet. Yay. Oh, but now I would love to know who. I'm going to wonder how I can see Rika. I wonder if Rika's the lady that, I wonder if you're the lady that has moved a lot. Are you that same lady or not? Because there was a lady that I met at George that spoke to me about how many times they'd moved. And if that is you, Rika, or if you know the person I'm talking about, I've been able to share that testimony with other moms since then because you were positive about it, about moving and how it can be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a strain, because it really is. Moving is a big thing for a lot of people, and it has a lot of negative association to it. Okay. So, ladies, thank you for joining me. Do you have your tea? I hope so. And I now am ready for your questions. And I'm looking here, and I can't see any questions so far. Stephanie in Idaho, do you have a question that you'd like to ask today? Be interesting. And I'm wondering what time it is there, because Stephanie said good morning. And right now we are at 3:45 in the afternoon here in South Africa. Isn't that wonderful that I can speak to Stephanie in her morning time? And while you ladies are there, okay, so Rika isn't the lady that moved a lot. Thank you for letting me know that, Rika. But I was going to say, while you ladies are there, you can let me know what kinds of questions it is that you would have, or that people that you know would have, and help me with some direction with these live streamings, what the people want. Because what I want to do is I want to be here available for people and help them and support them in any which way that I can in this learning lifestyle. And so you might have questions that have come up in your week from others or yourself. And Rika started home educating her daughter in 2017, and she's 15 years old. So I do hope that my encouragement today with inspiring and not requiring, the little tip I had, Rika, I hope that's been helpful to you, and that you will see these years with your daughter, these last few years before she's an adult woman, that you will see them as a wonderful blessing and opportunity to be able to prepare her for womanhood, prepare her for being the wife and a mother and a homemaker and being pleasing to God in her character. I hope that becomes the most important, more important than the academic aspect. People think that I don't think the academic is important, but I do. But I have this little quote here that I wrote: don't make sacrifices for academics, rather sacrifice the academics. I wrote that down one day because if we have to choose one over the other, I would sacrifice the academics for the sake of being able to rather have that time that I'm talking about, of being able to equip our children in preparation for being used by God in a way that, so in other words, don't make sacrifices for academics, rather sacrifice the academics if you had to choose. It's nice to do both, I agree, and I think it would be good for us to be able to do both. Oh, thank you, Princess. You see, that's what I love to hear, that you're at peace now, that you don't have to obsess with all these certificates that the world requires. I need to listen to God whilst God is leading me in raising my children. Well, I thank the mom in Namibia for sharing with us about how she needed to come to this place of peace and that we could start there today because, as I said at the beginning of this live streaming, when we finish this live streaming, if you want to be able to watch from the beginning, if you only came on halfway, we are going to have it on the Oikos homepage. But as I said at the beginning, that it is a concern that so many parents have, and what you've said here, Princess, is so true, that you don't have to obsess with all these things. And that's exactly what I've been picking up, is that the parents seem to be obsessing over it. I mean, it's a strong word, but it does seem like that. It becomes such a stress whereby our parents are feeling like they've got to do something about this now. They've got to attend to making sure that their children are getting the certificate, getting prepared for the certification or the exit with all those paper exams that they have to prepare for. In fact, I'm going to tell you something else now that a mom wrote last week, and she said, why isn't there a time frame on the Maths UC test? Because there should be, because it's got to prepare children to write exams within a certain time frame. So I thought, well, do you know that I never ever put a time frame on when we were doing Maths UC with our children? I never said to them, you have to do this in the next, you've got 10 minutes to do this test or whatever it was. And I know why I didn't, and I know why I never thought of it, was because, number one, if our child even did a test that was our daughter, it would be stressful in itself because she would take it so seriously and she wanted to get everything right. So I would definitely not add stress to her. In fact, I would give her the test without her knowing it's a test because I knew it would add stress because she's that kind of personality. So I would be giving her a page to do so that I knew as a mom that she had mastery on this and on this particular topic rather than me adding more stress to it. On the other hand, Jamie would just find the tests and just do them because he liked doing them. And he would just do them so fast that he'd be a bit careless and he wouldn't be careful enough and he'd make mistakes that weren't because he didn't know, it was just because he'd been careless. So then I had to slow him down and make him do it more carefully and apply himself and think about what he's doing rather than, So you see, it was actually about the character for both of them. The one I saw that doing tests was creating stress, or if she knew it said test at the top of the page, I had to help her to see that actually who's testing us and who's looking at us and what kind of test we need to pass. We need to pass life tests, not the page. And we don't have to have a time limit on it. However, this mom who wrote in did actually have a point in the fact that she's saying, it's part of preparation to have to do things under pressure, for example. So I wrote that to Maths UC, and I said to them, I'm going to go to it now. I'm looking for the answer right now while I'm talking to you. Because I said to them, how would you answer this question? Because as a mom home educating, there it is, my children at home and using Maths, you see all the way, I didn't feel like I needed to put a time frame on it. And so I wrote that to them, and this is what they answered. Hello, Sonja. I spoke with Isaac Demi. Now, Isaac is Steve Demi's son. And he said we do not have a time limit for the tests. If a student spends a significant amount of time on one problem, then they would need to discuss that problem after to make sure they understand the concept. If they're preparing for SATs or some type of state test, then you could time them to help them work better under pressure. It is important that they understand the concept completely rather than how quickly they can answer them. Pressure will oftentimes cause more pressure on the student. That is what the answer was directly from Ethan from Matthew C. Ethan been involved now in Matthew C. Father Steve Demi wrote Matthew C. Now Ethan's involved, and that's the answer. So I hope that answer clears up the fact that, oh, sorry, thank you, Jamie. Jamie just reminded me that I'm saying Ethan, and it was actually Isaac who answered. Ethan's one of the other sons. It was Isaac who answered that. Thanks for that correction, Jamie. Spotted me saying the wrong son's name there. So I hope that, as you can hear from that answer, that it's actually not so much about adding more pressure, but it's more about spotting where you need to help your child, as in seeing, okay, a little bit of pressure causes them to not cope very well. So that's what I need to deal with. I need to help them in their character. I need to equip and train them. Basically what I'm saying, like Princess is saying, she's feeling at peace now. What I'm saying to the moms out and anybody who's watching this is that I believe that God wants us to be at a place of peace about it, and he wants us to look at what's important to him about this matter. And does he want us to be putting all our time and energy and making sure we see to it that they do their tests in a certain time frame and equipping them for those exams? Or does he want us to be focusing on their characters and their journey with him and their walk with him, so that he can use them in great and mighty ways, way beyond what us as parents can even think that is even possible? I mean, look at this. I'm talking to moms all over the world. I didn't know that that was possible. God has prepared and equipped and trained and helped us as parents help our son to be ready to serve him. And that's not by being a pilot. Now, what if he still wanted to be a pilot? In fact, before I came into live streaming today, I had this conversation with him about the fact, do you mind if I share some photographs of you growing up and talk about your passion to be a pilot? And he immediately just said, well, if I was ever going to be a pilot one day, it would be for some humanitarian mission aviation type reason. I wouldn't be a pilot for being a commercial pilot. That's what he said this morning. So that made me think, you see, it's not about whether that's what he wants to be. It's about, if that's what I'm going to do, then I will do that for a purpose that is something that God needs me to do it for. Those weren't his exact words. But what I'm saying is right now he's doing videography. And if he needs to be a pilot sometime or whatever, whichever direction God takes him, we must be prepared and equipped and ready right now, every day, to serve him and be available for that. So if these moms that are sitting there watching can put their focus on that, and the moms that watch after the fact, if you can put your focus on that, then if all the live streaming is about is to remind and encourage you to keep focusing on what's important to God, and when you find yourself listening to the voices of the world and the pressure that comes from that, and you've got to this and you've got to that, just check. Did God say that? Is this something that God is telling me to do, to make sure that I prepare my children for that, what the world is telling me, or is it in line with what God is telling me? If it is, well, okay. If it's not, well, then I would think that you need to just be sure and just check and just go to God. Make sure he is leading you, and it's not something that you listening to the voices of the world. Wow. Thank you for these comments, ladies. I'm reading some of them now. They're such a blessing. Shirley's asking, can you share about post-homeschooling? There is immense pressure generally here in the UK for young people to go to university. Victoria applied and she was accepted to uni to study illustration, but she has deferred her place for a year put it on hold because she feels she only applied because it's the done thing to do. How can we guide and disciple our young adults in their careers and dreams? Do you know what I think, Shirley? I think that that is a matter of the Lord. In that, if our children are passionate about Him and they're following after Him, and we have taught them to seek Him and come to that place of contentment and peace in Him, then when they hear the voices of the world and what you're supposed to be doing and what you should be doing, and they know to go check with God, they know that to talk to their parents about it and say, this is what's happening. I'm feeling this pressure, or I'm feeling this pull, or I'm feeling like I need to go to university. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Why do you feel you need to go to university? Is it something you feel strongly you need to equip yourself in so that you can be prepared to serve the Lord and be better equipped in that area? If it's medicine or law, whatever it might be, God needs you to be equipped, and that's part of the process. And there's a compelling, a conviction, a peace about doing that. Well, then the parent and the student are going to know that that's what they must prepare for, and the parents need to be planning for that and financially and supporting the student in that, because it's about God. It's about what God is doing and saying. It's not about a child wanting to go and do something because they feel like they would like to do that. They're like looking, what should I do? And it's all about them. When it's all about them, this is what could happen. They could go to university for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, come out, do whatever for 1 or 2 years, and then do something else. I heard that story just the other day. I read a story about a daughter who went and studied medicine and then went into the field of medicine, and she'd been there about a year, I think, maybe a bit longer, and ended up joining the family business and now is helping her father. So you could think, why is she not doing medicine? Well, she did it because that's what she wanted to do, or she felt she needed to do, but now she's in the family business. So anyway, and that's another story. I could go on with a lot of these stories because I'm now thinking of another one where mom has 2 daughters, and both the parents are professional people, and they were insistent that their children have to get a degree because otherwise they're not going to be able to, manage in life. You've got to have a degree. And so the oldest one, they prepared her for her matric, they were home educated. They prepared her for matric, went to university, finished university, went on a gap year overseas somewhere after university to take a break, and now is in full-time ministry at that country where she went to visit. And so, yes, the university learning, education time is very likely has equipped her in some things to help her in the field of work she's now doing. But this young lady said to her mother, please don't put my sister through that. She said, please don't make her get her certificate so she can go to university. Didn't say that right. So she can go to university. Rather prepare her, spend time helping her to seek God and to seek God's way and where God is leading her and directing her. Because it seems that this first daughter, the one who's full-time in the mission field now, is now putting herself through courses that are applicable to the field that she's in now to prepare herself. And I do believe that God doesn't let things be wasted. I do believe that those people that have been through study and in whatever field they've been doing, where they've been spending time, like I was talking about Jamie, and spent so many years planning to be a pilot, and all of that I see as now God is using that in this way, as far as the industry he's in now in videography. So I don't think it gets wasted, but I think that it's important that while parents are at home with their children, they got their children at home, they must use that time the way God wants it used. They mustn't use it in the way that the world is demanding from them to use it. They mustn't use that time, that precious time that they've got, must be used
for God and pleasing to God, not pleasing to the world. That's what I'm emphasizing over and over and over again, because that is what it's about at the end of the day. And yeah, next live stream I can talk some more and more and more and more on this topic, but now I have seen that we've already been at it for 1 hour. I'm just going to see if there's anything left here on my notes that I was going to here's one little statement that I wrote down. Home education can offer time to spend hours in an interest which is not available in the system. Now that little statement, please apply that when your children are in their young adult years heading towards exiting home education, and as Shirley was even saying, even after they've exited home education, allow time to be spent and hours to be spent on interests that come to them, things that come on their path that can help them to develop and seek God's way, the way He wants Him to go, and learn how to do that, learn how to go to the Word, learn how to pray, learn how to come to that place of contentment and knowing that you are doing exactly what God wants you to do. I can end this with saying that many times Jamie gets questioned with, what are you doing? Are you going to university? Are you at home? Are you leaving home? Are you still at home? What? You know, all those questions that come. And his answer is always the same. I'm where God wants me to be right now. And so I'm content. And if he wasn't in that place and he had gone somewhere where he didn't have that contentment, he would have to seek out the way to get the way God needs. He would have to seek out God's way so that he can get to that place of contentment, because that's what it's about. It's about knowing that you're in the center of God's will. And it's about helping your young adult children to understand what that actually is. And that is what I want to encourage parents to spend time on. That is what is important to God. That is why we have the Oikos resources that we have to actually constantly channel that focus. So that is what we zoom in on, and not listening to all what the world has to say. So I'm going to end on that note. And thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. I really am blessed. I love having you there. Love being able to speak to you out there. Wherever you may be, I just hope that you have a wonderful Sunday. Tomorrow, a nice, restful day. Seeking God, being quiet and peaceful, and listening to where He's leading you, and that you will have a fantastic week this week to come while you continue on that journey. And I hope that you'll be joining me next Saturday. I hope I'll be live streaming. I don't make any solid commitments to that because one doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. But my plan is, and my hope is, to keep these live streamings happening at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, because it seems to be the time that can work. Thank you for joining me. Thank you again, Shirley, because you're my little penny that keeps coming up, and I really appreciate your commitment to support on this live streaming. And the other moms as well, thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing all of you again next week, and have a wonderful week. Thank you. Bye.